Hey guys, Golic here. We want to thank Allstate for teaming up with the Golic and Wingo podcast this season. Allstate is also teaming up with fans across the country to let them know about the magic of mayhem. Mayhem during college football season is inevitable, be it good or bad. Whether it's a backup quarterback leading his team to a second-half comeback in the national championship game or the countless number of rivalries across the country, mayhem will definitely leave its mark. Simply put, mayhem in college football cannot be stopped. Unfortunately, it's not confined to the stadium. Fender benders on the way home, popped tires, cracked windshields, mayhem is everywhere. That's why I'm here to remind you that in those crazy moments off the field, Allstate is here to help. Leave it to me to cover the mayhem in the game, but stick with the experts at Allstate to cover the mayhem off the field. So get Allstate and be better protected from mayhem. For expert advice, call your local agent today.
Are you hiring? With Indeed, you can post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on your short list of qualified candidates using an online dashboard. Get started today at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast.
Yeah! Good Monday morning, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, as we will be hereforth going forward, henceforth, now and forever, for the first 2 hours of the show. Glad you're with us after the first full Sunday of the NFL's regular season. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here with you. I'm just so happy. I'm so happy. It was so wonderful yesterday. It's like an old friend walked through the door.
It was very nice, just laying on the couch, kicking back, and just watching it all go by. I mean, you know what happened? You kind of, I felt like it, because I actually went downstairs for this one to watch the TV in the basement where there were I felt like I was in a casino.
Yeah.
No windows.
No lights. You have no idea what time
nothing.
it is.
I kept the lights down low. Next thing I knew, it was like 7:30, and I'd watched all the games, and I'm like, oh, my God, I should probably eat something right now.
This is the day where you neglect everything else. It's one of those days that even if you're in a spot that's got windows, where all of a sudden you look up and the room around you's pitch black because the sun has gone down. You have not gotten up to turn any lights on. You are completely alone. Pants are optional. You probably haven't fed yourself. You probably haven't bathed most of the day.
Yeah, that was
but
it.
It doesn't matter because we got football back.
It doesn't matter because yesterday was, first of all, it was a validation of everybody that got their contracts because everybody that got paid balled out. So we saw the best of the best shining through. And if I could sum up how I feel knowing that I'm going to be doing this for the next 17 weeks, I have to say I feel like this.
I think I see blue. He looks glorious.
It's just glorious. It's glorious to have it all back and washing over us one more time.
I was just concerned it was going to be the horns and the noise
Yeah,
that
I didn't know
usually
which one.
accompanies that.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm glad you mixed it up a little bit. You got some different sound bites.
Well, you know, we try and get things going, but we're going to be mixing up, chopping it up.
A lot to do.
Lots to get into.
Monday's
today.
always tough because there's so much. You got to try and put it in an order.
Yeah.
You got to try and somehow cull it all down to get to stick to certain topics, or you could just talk all over the place. You could do it all day and never get everything in.
We're going to do that, by the way. Oh, and let's not forget.
You play to win the game.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, buddy.
Hope everyone took the under.
Yeah.
That's my guy. Big start for Herm Edwards in the Arizona
Boy, I
State
think we
Sun
know
Devils.
he's going to pick who won the weekend.
No, I have no idea. I'm still open
Yeah.
to suggestions. Don't forget, you can get in touch with us. A couple of ways, 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed at Golic and Wingo, or you can call in 860-506-505. 860-506-5505.
Yeah.
Business disclaimer, we are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. It was an unbelievable cap to the weekend that was Sunday night and what happened between Green Bay and Chicago. And we'll get into all of football first, but other things did happen on a rather interesting weekend, and let's start there with what's trending. First, we'll go with Mitch Moreland, singled in the winning run with 2 outs in the ninth, and the Red Sox beat the Astros 6-5 on Sunday Night Baseball to avoid a 3-game sweep in a matchup of AL division leaders.
Yeah, J.D. Martinez hit his 40th home run. He is second in the league behind Chris Davis from Oakland, who has 41. He leads, though, when RBIs. He had 4 of those, 121, and second in the league in batting and average, hitting .331 behind Mookie Betts, his teammate.
That's crazy.
Who's hitting .342. Somewhat ridiculous what they are doing, but they beat Houston. They snapped Houston's 7-game win streak. That's the exciting one to me, is because obviously what Boston has done. Boston is leading the way, but Houston now has a 2.5-game lead on the Oakland A's. There's about 18 games left, I think, right in that area there, and they don't play each other the rest of the season. They're done with their series. And if you want this thing to go out and go down to the end, advantage Houston. Their last 4 games are against the worst team by record in the American League, Baltimore. It's their last 4 games. The last 3 games, the last set for the A's is against the Angels in their own division there. So that certainly favors Houston coming down the line.
So we got that in the big picture. Smaller picture last night. I know a lot gets made in almost every sport as video reviews become a much more common part of everything, and we certainly await some of that's role in the NFL season. But last night, a 3-minute and 50-second review of a play at the plate where Red Sox catcher Sandy Leon jumped. Leon?
Yeah.
Good. I'm reading this for the first time. We know we all weren't watching Sunday Night Baseball last night. There's a 3-minute and 50-second review where he jumped for a throw from shortstop Xander Bogaerts to get Altuve out in the 7th. He was called out. The replays were inconclusive, and that's always the difficulty is proving what happened wrong. Once the initial call is on the field, we hear that all the time in football, but the role of video review and slowing down game action, we know Major League Baseball concerned about, NFL fans
That's
concerned
a long
about.
delay, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's a long delay.
Really long, and that's the one thing that I think baseball, for the most part, has done much better than football.
Yes.
They get in, they get out, they get it done very quickly.
They do.
This is very unusual.
Like an hour.
This seems like a regular standard NFL replay.
That's exactly right.
You know, this reminds me of the Jesse James was it or wasn't it touchdown catch, which now would have been a touchdown for the Steelers against the Patriots last December. But 3 minutes and 50 seconds is a long, long time. Well, give it up for Novak Djokovic. The second set was pivotal. He beat Juan Martín del Potro in straight sets, 6-3, 7-6 in the second, 6-3, to claim back-to-back majors after going over 2 years without winning one. It's his 14th career major, tying Pete Sampras for the third most in men's tennis history.
What is it, Nadal at 17?
Nadal at 17 and then Federer at 20.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's and boy, in a tournament that we saw the heat have the effect it did of people dropping out early, them changing the rest rules or for the men to equal what the women were getting from the men between the third and fourth set. So, and then Nadal having a drop out of this with the knee injury. And then certainly, so congrats to the Joker. And obviously we'll get into the Serena Williams situation.
Yes, we will.
Of her losing in the finals and what transpired there. But good for the Joker in a tournament. I'm sure a lot of these guys are glad they're over and are looking. These are guys that are looking forward to fall more than anybody and the weather breaking. They're done with the heat.
That was a true war of attrition.
Yeah,
we talk about that across sport, but to see, just like you mentioned, so many of the top guys dropping because Federer openly admitting that, you know, he could,
got to him.
Conditioning wise, it got to him.
And he's one of the fittest guys that has ever played the game.
That's what I mean. And I think to some extent we all watch sports to see how people respond in extreme conditions. But this one, for it to push, and this kind of relevant to the Serena Williams discussion, for that to be what pushed some of these greats off the court is a little bit disappointing in that. For, you know, to see Nadal leaving early on that, to see Federer to succumb to that as opposed to seeing them at the height of their powers is a little disappointing. But that's part of sports, is you have to be able to weather that storm, and that's what Joker did.
And that's the beauty of tennis. Again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's no time. You can't run out the clock. Either you get your opponent to submit or you submit. Yeah. That's the only way you win. And I will say this, I'm glad you brought up the majors there, Golic, because Rafa has 17, Joker has 14, and, of course, Roger has 20. This is clearly, by any standard, the golden age of men's tennis. I mean, Sampras, when he got 14, people were freaking out.
Right.
14, can you believe it? I mean, Agassi had 8. I think McEnroe had 9 when he played. We're talking how great these guys are. What we're seeing from these 3 guys now in this sport, they are literally just suffocating anybody else from having a chance. Yeah. And you wonder how much longer this is going to go on, because Roger is 37 now. All these guys are in their 30s, and they're still kicking major tail. They're the only 3 that won slams this year. But it was Novak Djokovic who won the last 2, and he has been in the zone this summer. In the Zone, brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Well, if you like rain, the BMW Championships at the Aronimink Golf Club are really up your alley. Persistent rain caused the PGA Tour to suspend the championship Sunday at the BMW, and a poor forecast Monday may now completely derail the third leg of the 4-tournament FedEx Cup playoff series. The plan is to start this morning, but it's supposed to be raining all day, guys.
Well, and the deal is, they said if at least half the field can't finish today, if they have to delay it, then they're not going to golf at all. And it's going to be over for the 54 holes, which would mean Justin Rose would be the winner. All the money gets dispersed then, like the tournament is over. then looking going forward, remember the top 30 move on. And if this thing were canceled, Jordan Spieth loses out because he's sitting at number 31 right now. Yeah. So he would miss next week. Bryson DeChambeau is assured of going into the last tournament next week in the lead for the FedEx, followed by Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson, and Tony Finau, meaning for those guys, if any one of those guys win next week, they win the $10 million. If somebody else wins, then it's going to come down to the placing of everybody else. But a lot riding on today, for especially guys that are sitting there, 32, 33, 34, 35, and as I mentioned, Jordan Spieth at 31, just trying to get into 30. So let's see if we get some golf today.
Tiger Woods at 11th also, by the way, to say the one name that we've somehow managed to skate for an entire golf segment so far. But, going to be interesting. Weather is a huge factor this entire weekend, so driving this into a place where maybe we get a little more eyes on it, because I got to lie, it felt like an embarrassment of riches yesterday. I'm sort of glad. Hopefully it can get off
I would
today,
love to. Then we get sports.
It would be a nice bit of sports all throughout the day leading up to a Monday Night Football doubleheader.
Absolutely right.
You can very clearly see how centric my weekend was around football.
A double dip that could be really good. Yeah, the Tiger thing is interesting. Shot an 8 under, 62 in the first round. Then just an even par 70 where everyone else was moving forward. He sort of stuck in neutral. Couldn't make a putt where he made everything on Thursday. And then he shot a 4 unders, bogey-free 66 and gained no ground. I mean, that shows you how deep these guys were going.
And by the way, the last tournament is a week from now.
Yes.
There's a week in between. But isn't Furyk picking the last after this one, right?
Yes.
He's picking the fourth captain's pick.
It's supposed to be today, Tony Finau. Our guy.
Oh, no, I'm saying Furyk's picking.
He's supposed to pick today.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be today at 9 a.m. Now, they may hold off that
announcement. No, they're
after.
waiting. They said they're waiting until after this is concluded, so it could be later.
But look for that name to be Tony Finau when it's all said and done.
So Schauffele, you don't think has a shot?
The only way Schauffele has a chance is if he wins, if he can win
golf
this tournament.
Today and he wins it. Okay.
And I still think that's an outside chance because he was sitting 12th on the points.
Right.
Finau's birdie machine is going to be something that'll be tough to overlook. But yeah, it could be. But our guy Jimbo, Furzy, J-Man, probably going to pick Tony Finau when it's all said and done. And in the newest Associated Press college football poll, I am shocked to tell you that Alabama is number 1. The Crimson Tide have made their 106th overall appearance atop the AP rankings, which started in 1936, passing the Ohio State University for the most by any school.
Yeah, obviously they're doing well.
Yeah.
Playing well. And I heard you play it this morning, Nick Saban talking about his 2 quarterbacks, and I think you're right. We got too good stuff for Saban too early in the season. So the expectation as far as, he yelling at Maria Taylor and getting mad at people too early. So now we're expecting that every week, and we're not going to get that.
No, looks like we're going to have to wait till November before some sort of rat poison comment comes out. You got to get later in the season when the intensity starts to ratchet up for everybody, and Nick will turn the screw there. For the rest of the group in the top 25, number 2, Clemson.
What a game with them. What a game with Clemson and A&M.
That was fantastic.
Yes,
Defied a lot of expectation. We're going to talk about berating officials. Jimbo Fisher down on the field at the end of that game. Some controversial calls there. Just wearing these dudes out. Them at 2, Georgia at 3, number 4, Ohio State held their spots, and Oklahoma moves to number 5 over Wisconsin, but suffers a pretty big loss over the weekend. One of their star running backs lost for the season due to injury, so going to factor that in, and as unfortunate as it is, in the beginning of the season, certainly best conditioned to figure out how you're going to overcome that for the rest of the year as Kyler Murray continues to impress.
Gotta say, it was Rodney Anderson. Who this is 3rd season-ending injury. I mean, that is just a tough go.
You heard Lincoln Riley say afterwards, you just feel so bad. He's overcome so much in his career, but they think, if anybody can come back one more time, it would be him. And I think it's all wonderful that Alabama's 1 and Clemson's number 2, yada, 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 Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma.
Hello?
Herm Edwards and the Arizona State Sun Devils, baby, sneak in at 23 with a huge upset as time expired, 16-13 over formerly 15th-ranked Michigan State. All right. Golic and Wingo, presented by Progressive Insurance. Commercial insurance through Progressive protects your business and your dream. Choose from over 30 coverage options at progressivecommercial.com. Let's be honest. It was a wonderful, wonderful Sunday, capped off by an unbelievable performance by the baddest man on the planet, Aaron Rodgers. Let's all be honest here. When he went down in the first half against the Bears, and you saw the replay of that nose tackle just falling on his leg.
Roy Robertson-Harris fell on him. He and Khalil Mack were on him, but Harris fell on right on the side of his knee.
His left knee.
And you saw him go and grab right behind the knee right away. You thought, no way that just happened.
Yeah, and then you see him go off on the cart with that vacant look in his eyes. we all expected the worst, right?
Yeah, we did.
If we're all honest with us, no one said, you know what, after 10 minutes in and going, I bet he comes back and plays in the second half. And boy, did he come back and play in the second half. They were down 20 points in that game. They were down 17 points going into the fourth quarter, and Aaron Rodgers did Aaron Rodgers things, man, and it was a sight to see. It was unbelievable.
I'm not sure we're overreacting to the places we're going to take this performance from Aaron Rodgers to do it, because we mentioned it was his left knee too, so that's the plant knee as he's standing there in the pocket. You saw him the whole rest of the game.
A knee that's already been surgically rebuilt once.
Yes, and very gingerly on that knee for the rest of the game, and it didn't matter. Completed something like 74% of his passes post-knee injury in this game. And the interesting thing has been, we haven't really gotten any assurance from them now or from Aaron Rodgers that everything's all right with that, but he's already coming out and saying, I'm playing next week against Minnesota. That's non-negotiable.
He basically, and we'll hear saying that they didn't think he could hurt it anymore, which sounds somewhat odd.
Right.
That's, don't
go
think
ahead
you
and
could
disagree with you.
I'm pretty sure one more shot and you're going to hurt that thing worse.
Pretty sure you could. I mean, if you don't hurt it anymore, that would mean it would be a complete tear, and then it would say, you can't hurt it anymore.
Correct.
But it is amazing with Aaron Rodgers and all he's done. It's the first time throwing 3 touchdowns in a fourth quarter in his NFL career.
That's amazing.
I almost can't believe it. I almost feel like we need to check that, because it doesn't seem with Aaron Rodgers that that's possible, seeing what this man has done already in his career, that he hasn't thrown 3 touchdowns in a fourth quarter. But and there it was. I mean, the other side of it, from the Bears side, we could sit there and say, what happened? What happened to you guys? What happened to any offense in the second half of getting just 3 points and that was it? But you have to remember, as an offense, they put up 16 points, not 23, because Khalil Mack had an incredible game for the short time that he was in there.
We'll get to that.
So there is certainly the Chicago side of it, leading 20-0 in this game. But Aaron Rodgers, you just hope that MRI is fine today. But, man, he was the baddest man, as we said.
Listen, he justified his salary, as did Mack, as did Odell Beckham Jr., but this was Aaron after the game basically saying, look, I was out there to play, and we'll see what happens.
Once I realized, like I said, it wasn't going to be I wasn't going to injure it anymore if I went back out there, and realized I could put a little bit of weight on it. I just figured the adrenaline would kick in, and playing behind Brett Favre for 3 years, you realize you got to be tough to play this position. So in that situation, it's about coming back out and leading, and if you can do it and deal with the pain, you should be out there.
And boy, did he. I thought it was interesting, guys, when he came back in there. They clearly, because even before he got hurt, the front seven of the Bears was getting to him.
Yeah, they were.
And let's just say this right now. The front seven of the Bears is going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a problem for everybody all season long. But they changed the way they did things once he came back from injury. It was pretty clear, look, we're going to get rid of this ball pretty quickly.
Yeah, we are. Yep.
And you're going to have to – they up-tempoed it pretty well, and then suddenly that pass rush – look, when you're getting rid of the ball as fast as they were getting rid of it, it's hard to get to the quarterback like that.
Oh, well, you can hit the greatest pass rusher in the world. If he's getting rid of the ball, then you got no shot. So, they had to change it up. He couldn't be running around the way he normally would and be dangerous that way. It had to all come from the pocket. And then it had to come, because they're quicker passes, then had to come from his receivers getting yards after the catch, which they clearly did.
They did. It's the thing of, we can talk, because a lot of those numbers, it was just under 12 yards a catch in the second half. Off Aaron Rodgers' passes, and I get it. There was a lot of great plays by the receivers, but the place this guy puts the ball is so overwhelmingly accurate and puts these guys in a position, because we've talked about it, in a day and age, Matt Nagy on the other side, a lot of brilliant offensive schemes in the first half of this game. Got a little stagnant in the middle of the game,
right?
But we saw that from Nagy. We saw that from Andy Reid in week 1 of the season. We talked glowingly about Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and the jobs they do with these offenses. That ain't the Packers' offense. They're not scheming guys open for anybody. It's Aaron Rodgers throwing these guys in spots where they can make plays.
Without question. And look, people can have their favorite sports, and they can do it, and that's fine, all well and good. But if you're going to ask me why I love football more than any other sport and why I think it's the greatest team sport there is, because you have to rely on one another to get the job done. And then what Aaron Rodgers said after the game might sum up why I feel the way I do about football.
This is what we're paid to do. We're paid to deal with injuries and play through them. That's what everybody's doing and will be doing throughout this season. That's the measure of a teammate, is what are you willing to put on the line for your team. And to me, it's a no-brainer. Being out there is special. The ovation from the crowd lifts you up, gives you the energy, the momentum of the game, and you feel the tide turning is special. This is definitely go down as one of my favorite memories, especially in this rivalry.
Give me a minute, guys. Take over.
Listen, and most guys feel that way. Most guys want to be on the field. Most guys want to be out there for their teammates, who I know we're in an era, especially with head injuries, where you're gonna be a little more cautious about it. But giving guys their choice, they're gonna want to be on the field, and that's one of the biggest differences in the game today. Is you're not giving some players the choice in certain situations. So if they want to be out there, but they're not going to be out there. But for the most part, that's the mentality. I know it's a mentality. I was taught. I know it's a mentality I tried to teach. You and Jake in playing this game, Mike. It's just you want to be out there. I always talked about there's hurt and there's injured. You can play when you're hurt. You got to be careful about playing when you're injured. You want to do it, but given the certain situations, you have to see. It was still an interesting line when I couldn't hurt it anymore, so I'm going to go back. I mean, that line, you almost have to chuckle at it, but then say, yeah, giddy up, man. Go on, do your thing.
Well, Aaron Rodgers did for everyone what he just did for Trey right there last night, and that to me is atypical for him because Aaron Rodgers more the free thinker. Spent some time this offseason, with Dalai Lama and all this different free thinking, but he gave you the football guy answer right there that everyone covets, and I think that really took this weekend to the next level.
It absolutely did. And, by the way, we'll get into another unbelievable performance from the Sunday night game, which makes you wonder why one guy did what he did in letting that guy go.
It's time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Zoom gives you flawless video, crystal clear audio, and instant sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit Zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's Zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing. Technology powers your business, and technology changes. But chances are you're still using video conferencing that was wow 10 years ago, but feels more like whoa today. Ditch the choppy video and crappy audio and get back to wow with Zoom. It's the easiest, most reliable video collaboration suite, and it costs about 1/3 of what you're probably paying now. Wow, not whoa. Visit Zoom.us to set up a free account today. That's Zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
All right, Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And don't forget, let us know who you think won the weekend. You can do that at the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, or you can call in 860-506-5505. But boys and girls, it's time for Straight Talk now, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. And the straightest talk I can think of is if I'm a Raiders fan watching that Sunday night game, I had to feel absolutely nauseous about what I saw that they let walk out the door in what Khalil Mack did.
I'll quickly say on the other side of that, you know what those that were all right with it are going to say is?
They lost the game.
Bears lost the game.
Yeah.
And going to what John Gruden said about Khalil Mack, listen, our defense, I'm not saying this about Khalil Mack, but our defense wasn't very good last year, and Khalil Mack was on that defense. So for those that want to stay on that side of it and pray that it was the right move, that's going to be your one and only thing that you can say is, well, with the interception, defensive touchdown, sack, force, fumble recovery all in the first half, they still lost, so maybe it was still the right move, but boy, oh boy, was he something to watch.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a little bit ill-conceived because look what it took to beat them and look who did it.
Yeah. I agree with you, but I'm just saying there are going to be people that want to justify it.
Yeah, those people are haters and they're wrong, but you look at this situation for both of these guys, they're both players in Aaron Rodgers and Khalil Mack that we knew who they were coming in. Like, none of this is surprising, but it still found a way to be overwhelmingly impressive. They both did things that no one else other than themselves had done. Like, Khalil Mack did all those things in the first half. The last player to do all of those things in one game
Khalil Mack.
You can't script this stuff.
You really can't. And I understand what I thought the exact same thing this morning. Well, but you know what? More often than not, those kind of plays are going to win you a game. They're not going to lose you a game. And what I loved about this weekend is because you always hear this. Everyone's really good in a contract year, and then they get the contract, and you're afraid they'll go full Hainsworth.
Right.
Or as I call it, Hainsworthless, when he got that big contract with the Washington Redskins.
Get him.
They all balled out, whether it was Khalil Mack, whether it was Odell Beckham Jr., whether it was Aaron Rodgers. But I'm telling you, that front seven for the Bears is going to be a problem for people. And what you put, Akeem Hicks was unbelievable. He is a strong. You got Leonard Floyd. You got Roquan Smith. His first play was a sack. His first play of the game. That Bears defense and what Mack is able to bring, everybody's going to feed off of that. And some of the reasons some of those guys were able to do the things they did because you had to account for Khalil Mack on those plays.
And I think also some of the reason we can talk about the success in the second half for the Packers, why the Bears defense may not have looked like it had quite as much teeth, is because you were dealing with guys in Roquan Smith and in Khalil Mack who were both on somewhat of a pitch count.
Right.
Like we heard coming into this that they were going to monitor. Now, Matt Nagy sort of smiled at halftime and said, we're going to monitor Khalil Mack play to play, but probably a few more plays based on the way he had been in the first half. But these are guys that because of when they reported, because of their respective holdouts, aren't quite in the same game shape as everyone that had a full slate of training camp. And so you factor that in, that as the Packers picked up the pace, those guys, especially who had been so successful, were even more vulnerable to that pace eroding them down a little bit.
And also the emphasis shifted then to the linebackers and secondary and coverage because Aaron Rodgers was getting rid of the ball quicker. So now it fell on those guys a little more. And Aaron Rodgers' accuracy, which we talked about earlier, let not only the receivers catch the ball, but then get yards after the catch. And then, let's be honest, you have a bit of poor tackling on the Randall Cobb long touchdown run off of not the longest throw in the world that he takes at 75 yards. And that's a recipe a bit for disaster. So they effectively took that front seven and that pass rush away in the second half by an up-tempo offense and a quick release of the ball.
We never make it about one play because you understand so many of them come up, but is anyone going to feel worse than Kyle Fuller this morning? Drops a sure interception that hits him right in the stomach. That would have ended all of this. The game is over if he makes that interception. And instead, what was it, the very next play that Aaron Rodgers hit for a long pass? You can't give Aaron Rodgers any room to breathe, and that was, a mile to go through.
It was. And one of the things that I loved about the opening weekend of the NFL regular season, it proved that defense still matters. I mean, we saw the game-changing plays that Khalil Mack made, and he was great. Did anybody have a better game than Von Miller? Did anybody have a better game than Von Miller?
Broncos get a win over the Seahawks, 27-24. Von Miller, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Yeah. He has 2 career games now, at least 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. One of 3 players in the last 10 seasons with multiple games of 3 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. Suggs and Robert Quinn are the others. I mean, he is just constantly harassing the quarterback. And again, these are sacks, forced fumbles. This doesn't count the other times he's in the quarterback's face. He's
Pressures, hits.
Those intangibles, those things that you don't mark all the time or see, right in the initial box score.
So you look at those 2 guys, I think there's really a group of 4 that we can talk about.
Absolutely.
The marquee defensive performers. We mentioned Von Miller, we mentioned Khalil Mack, and the other 2 are going to be 2 guys we saw play in the same game against each other in TJ Watt and in Myles Garrett. Now, TJ Watt, if you want to go over the stat line, he's going to win the weekend. 11 tackles, 4 sacks, 5.5 tackles for loss.
And the block on the field goal that would have tied.
That's exactly right.
So affected the game in every way possible that you could. But then there's Myles Garrett.
Oh my God, was he good?
I'll say this. The rest of these guys, I mean, we've got 2 guys already with Defensive Player of the Years on their resume. Von Miller, who's a Super Bowl champion and a guy who's done it at every possible level. Myles Garrett, if he stays healthy, could be better than all of these people because physically his skill set completely trumps what the rest of these guys bring to the table.
His length, how tall, how long his arms are, how he contorts, how he moves, how he gets into a gap, how he is so quick. And he said he worked on that. That's the thing this year I see on defense. There are fads that go through. Remember, there was a time when all the linemen were doing, karate. Some are still doing martial arts, working on the hands.
And Aaron Donald fights with knives.
That's exactly right. But one of the main things is getting off the ball. That quick step off the ball. And Myles Garrett has that.
Oh my
and with
God.
his length, his able to keep keep the offensive lineman off him because he gets his arms out. He is in the backfield quicker than anybody I've seen in a while.
And let's be honest, the only reason that game ends in a tie is because of Myles Garrett.
Yes.
He forces two fumbles down the stretch,
right?
one from Connor and then one from Ben. And I just have to say this. The Browns ending their losing streak by not winning is the most Cleveland Browns thing of all time. That is peak Browns. And I get it. They're better, and I think they're still going to win multiple games. But that game was theirs, man. It was there for them, and they couldn't. I almost hate to do this. I feel bad. When T.J. Watt blocked that field goal attempt, I just started laughing. Yeah. I couldn't help myself. I mean, I want the Browns to win. I really do. I think they're going to win multiple games this year. I believe that with every fiber of my being. But I had to laugh when that happened. I'm like, this could only happen to them, right? They avoid the bullet on the other end when Pittsburgh misses the 43-yarder, and then they get the 42-yarder blocked.
It was outside of when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, I don't know if there's any one force that was more rooted for by the rest of the NFL than the Browns to win that game, and they somehow found a way to snatch tie from the jaws of victory.
It just says it. Snap 17-game losing streak. Then in parentheses, winless streak continues.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, it's just
That's it. That sums it up. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Coming up, again, the most surprising performance of the NFL weekend was completely magical and bearded.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
Listen, he's going to struggle. Pat Mahomes did not play his rookie year, barely at all. There is no chance on God's green earth he comes in next year and lights it up. There's something amazing to me about the fact that you have a Chief team that can win now, that you're going to go now to a young quarterback. I'm a little surprised.
Someone's a hater.
You are so You're so dumb.
Hey, jump on that train all you want. All of you that were on the Garoppolo train as well. How's that all working out?
I don't know. The Mahomes train's pulling out of the station.
Jump on it. I'll tell you a guy who started off the season for the Kansas City Chiefs better last year in the opening game.
Hold on, do a read, Junior.
Sports Center brought to you by Ultimate Software. In business, just like sports, success comes down to having a talented team and a strong game plan. And that's where Ultimate Software comes in with HR, payroll, and talent management technology that puts your people first.
All right, Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, ESPN2. We'll get into why Mike Golic hates Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, we'll get into the anointing after one game by these two guys.
Oh,
my God, get the bus. Let's transfer the Garoppolo bust over to the Mahomes bust while we put him in the Hall of Fame.
I love the way he's telling us we're overreacting by his massive overreaction. That's
my overreaction.
That's my favorite part.
Holy smokes!
No one is putting him in the Hall of Fame. We're just saying he played pretty well.
Okay, all right.
We're saying he played pretty well.
Slobber all over the place.
And then there was the thing that nobody expected.
Yeah, that's true.
What the heck happened in New Orleans? Ryan Fitzpatrick, 21-28, 417 yards. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and just for fun, he ran one in. Did anybody expect the Saints defense to look that bad and expect Ryan Fitzpatrick to look this good?
I took the Saints defense.
So that would be a no for you.
In our DraftKings, which, by the way, my wife already locked down the week 1 win in our group thing.
Despite starting Sony Michel.
She started an inactive player. And won. Unbelievable what went on there. But no, nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw this one coming, especially the way that New Orleans defense played last year. It's in New Orleans, and Ryan Fitzpatrick just torched them.
By the way, here's Duck Cutter walking up, that Bucs head coach walking up to the podium after the game.
Hey, how we doing? I'm happy to announce that Fitzmagic is alive and well. Quite a start, huh? Oh, he's got it in him. You just saw it.
Is there anybody smugger like, hey, it's my guy, Fitzy, our man, Fitzmagic.
Our Fitz.
Yeah. Wow.
No. That's L Fitz to you and me. But listen, I have to say did not see that coming at all. But we've seen this before, though, from Ryan Fitzpatrick. He can do this for like 3 or 4 games, and then the bell curve comes back the other way. But for the Bucs, all they need is 3 games, right? That's what they need.
That's my question, though.
Yeah.
Because the Bucs are looking at a very dicey proposition of having to bring Jameis Winston back potentially for a lot of money, and we know the risk of putting him back on the field. How many games like this do we need to see before it rattles their confidence enough in Jameis for them to decide to move on? Because the thing that jumped off to me is this was a Tampa Bay offense we talked about last year, has a ton of weapons. Mike Evans, Deshaun Jackson, Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, like you have 4 legitimate weapons on that offense that were not put to use in a way that people thought they would last year, and Fitz made them look like stars.
And what was the one thing that was missing all of last year? They brought in Deshaun Jackson, the over-the-top play. The 2 years ago, they didn't have one single 50-yard play. They didn't have any of those plays with those two. I think Fitzpatrick had 2 of those plays, 2 massive big plays with him and Deshaun Jackson.
I think 5 catches, $146, 2 touchdowns. I mean, really.
They had 2 receivers over 140 yards in that game.
Yeah, really. But to your point, I mean, it's 3 games, right, that Jameis is out. So next they're home, Tampa Bay's home to Philly, home to Pittsburgh, and at Chicago in that 4th game, that deciding game of what are you going to do? But the next 2 games, good defensive teams as well in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh. So we'll see if Fitzpatrick can stay consistent, because we've already heard Tampa Bay said Jameis Winston isn't guaranteed starting when he comes back in that 4th game. And if Tampa Bay, if they're off to a 3-0 start, a 2-1 start possibly, and Fitzpatrick is throwing well, that's certainly going to give them something to think about when they get to game 4.
Absolutely.
And forgetting just if it's going to be Fitzpatrick or not, I think it's if they say, well, if Fitzpatrick can do it, we can get somebody else.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Right.
The other
and not
side,
put the money into Jameis.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
The other side of this is what happened to the Saints defense. It was so much better last year after 3 straight 7-9 seasons when they're basically dead last in every category. And let's just say Sean Payton, the Saints head coach, he might as well just walked up and said, I did not see this coming.
It's week 1. Obviously, we have to improve in a lot of the things we're looking at. And we got to look closely as coaches as to what we're asking them to do, and are we asking the right guys to do it. It's not the same lineup. And it doesn't mean because there are certain players that were in that position a year ago, but obviously it was a disappointing loss.
And the interesting thing there is, and we learned this from the Saints last year, I mean, the Saints made the playoffs last year, won the division, and they started 0-2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, if anybody can fix it, it's going to be Sean Payton, because that defense got torched the first couple of weeks last year, and then they found a way to right the ship.
It is amazing how many times, even when they were losing, Drew Brees can walk off the field. He would never say it, but everybody else could say, well, wasn't him.
Yeah.
37 of 45. He threw the ball 45 times and had 8 incompletions for 439 yards, 3 touchdowns, didn't throw an interception, had 2 receivers over 100 yards as well. They didn't have a running game.
Yeah.
You know, remember that
Mark Ingram.
Mark Ingram is out for the first 4 games of the season. So and they only ran the ball 13 times because Tampa Bay jumped out of this monster lead, and it fell right into Drew Brees' lap with all the throwing.
Alvin Kamara still a passing threat, though. Still had a monster day for him.
Over 100
as well.
yards. He did.
Absolutely. And Mike Thomas, boy, I tell you what, 16 catches, 180 yards in the touchdown. But you're right. I mean, New Orleans got to get that defensive side of the thing figured out. And they can do it. Again, they started 0-2 last year, and they made the postseason. All right, coming up, we'll get to all of it. The good, the bad, and the ugly from the first weekend in football. We'll get to all of that next. Stay with us.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
Hey guys, Golic here. We want to thank Allstate for teaming up with the Golic and Wingo podcast this season. Allstate is also teaming up with fans across the country to let them know about the magic of mayhem. Mayhem during college football season is inevitable, be it good or bad. Whether it's a backup quarterback leading his team to a second-half comeback in the national championship game or the countless number of rivalries across the country, mayhem will definitely leave its mark. Simply put, mayhem in college football cannot be stopped. Unfortunately, it's not confined to the stadium. Fender benders on the way home, popped tires, cracked windshields, mayhem is everywhere. That's why I'm here to remind you that in those crazy moments off the field, Allstate is here to help. Leave it to me to cover the mayhem in the game, but stick with the experts at Allstate to cover the mayhem off the field. So get Allstate and be better protected from mayhem. For expert advice, call your local agent today.
Are you hiring? With Indeed, you can post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on your short list of qualified candidates using an online dashboard. Get started today at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast.
Well, hope your Monday morning's off to a good start. Golic and Wingo, ESPN Radio, and ESPN2. Again, henceforth, now and forever, the first 2 hours of the show on ESPN2. We're glad you're with us, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here with you. We're hoping to have, besides our double dip of Monday Night Football, hoping to have the final round of the BMW Championships played on the PGA Tour, the third of the FedEx Cup playoff series.
Nice. Wouldn't it be great? I don't think it's going to happen.
The weather forecast
so much rain.
Looks really bad, and they may have to cancel it after 54 holes, which Justin Rose would have no problem with.
No, he wouldn't.
Get the win.
Winner check.
And Jordan Spieth might be crushed because the top 30 move on to the Tour Championship, and as it stands right now, Jordan is 31st.
It's a bad number now.
It's a bad look right now. So again, we'll see if the weather will dictate that, but it was just a wonderful, wonderful weekend of football, both on the college side on Saturday, guys, as well as the first full slate of Sunday games in the NFL.
Listen, I was, I guess, just happy to have it back. You know, there were some dud games, obviously. You had the weather delay in Tennessee and Miami. The Cowboy and Carolina game wasn't the most exciting game in the world. But, you know, you take that because there's just so many, and you know coming to the end you're going to get those last possession games. You get that overtime game with Pittsburgh and Cleveland. So, you know, it's back. We get this juice, we get this amped up all the way until February. So pretty excited about that.
The moment for me, with about 10 seconds left on the clock, as it ticked down until I got to see Scott Hansen and the NFL Red Zone channel back on my screen, was some of the most excited I've been in recent memory. That was, we all lived through it together, and I think that's the fun part about Sunday is we get to live through all these highs and lows as one big group. Twitter is terrible in a lot of ways, but it is truly glorious when it comes to an NFL Sunday.
You know, you're absolutely right. It can't be nothing but a torrent of negativity. But on a football Sunday, it is a lot of fun to bounce around on.
We all almost got to celebrate Browns win.
We're almost unlocking the coolers.
We came what did you see? I kind of blame Joe Thomas.
Yeah.
I mean, when it got
what
close,
do?
He put out the video of the cooler where the Bud Light has those things locked, and he's like, guys, I'm like, Joe, what are you doing?
What do you do,
What
though?
are you doing?
Hey,
do you unlock the cooler, but maybe don't go in? I don't know.
You just open it up and look at it, kind of get like the cool breeze from the fridge.
You just crack one and,
If anyone gets a pass, by the way, it's Joe Thomas. Because
correct.
I am attributing, whenever they finally do get that first win, Joe Thomas gets all the credit.
Correct. It'll be all the mojo and moxie that Joe Thomas has given them all the years. We have a lot to get into, including what we thought was the good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend. We'll get to all of that after what's trending. And here's what's trending. Aaron Rodgers is still the baddest man on the planet. Carted off in the first half with what looked like a horrible knee injury, but came back and said, screw it. I can't hit it any worse. Went back and played and unbelievably came back. 3 second-half touchdown passes, all in the fourth quarter, by the way, including a 75-yarder to Randall Cobb with just over 2 minutes remaining to erase a 20-point deficit to come back and have a huge win against the Bears at Lambeau on Sunday Night Football.
I was amazed at the stat. First time throwing 3 touchdowns in a fourth quarter in his NFL career. That stunned me, as great as he is and a guy who's walking into the Hall of Fame, that he hadn't done that before. Because when you saw that injury, when you saw Roy Robertson-Harris land on the side of his leg and him immediately reach for it, man, players know, obviously, before anybody, and they can know how bad it can be. I thought it was going to be bad. He's going to get more tests today. I love the line. Well, I couldn't hurt it any worse going back out there. Yeah, you probably could, but you're Aaron Rodgers, and you were losing 17-0 at half and 20-0 before you walk back on the field. So we'd like you back on the field. So you look at it from their side, how great it was, but Bears had to be kicking themselves. They had this one. Defense looked pretty good. A lot of different formations that you mentioned early on. The front seven looked fantastic. Not enough offense, obviously, in that second half out of them.
No, but I think you saw enough in certain spots. Towards the end of the game, one of the Bears' last drives, I thought Mitch Trubisky had a lot of plays where he showed a fair amount of poise in that offense. A lot of the mobility on display that made him such a coveted prospect. He gets outside of the pocket, still able to deliver accurately downfield. Saw Allen Robinson a couple of times show up big for them. Looks like the Bears finally have some legitimate receiving weapons for them to use in that offense.
They do, but again, that offense was so stagnant in the second half. I mean, if they get one touchdown in the second half, that game's over. They're not coming back from that. So as good as everything went for that defensive front in the first half, they needed to find a way to find one more touchdown, and we're not talking about a comeback with Aaron Rodgers today. In fact,
right.
Let's say they on that first drive they score and go up 27-0. Yep. Does Aaron Rodgers even see the field? Does Aaron Rodgers even see the field there?
I was uncomfortable with him going back out there at all.
I was too.
Down 20.
I thought they might give it a shot, see how it goes, and then maybe pull him out. I wasn't sure. 20, that would have been really interesting if they could have put one more up there.
But they didn't, and that gave Aaron Rodgers life. And look, it was good Sunday, but now comes the real test for Aaron Rodgers.
We just finished up, and we haven't had lengthy conversations yet about it. But we'll do some tests tomorrow. Yeah, I felt like once I got back out there and the adrenaline was going, that it loosened up a little bit, but then, tightened up there in the fourth quarter. I was walking up and down the sideline to try and keep it loose. But no, we'll do tests tomorrow and give you a better answer on Wednesday when I talk. But as long as there's no major issues, and I'll keep playing.
So again, it's all good now, and then you just wonder what the tests are going to show today, right?
Yeah, that's where when he went back in and he's talking about it hurting more and people see him kind of walking and limping a little bit, everyone's just kind of putting blinders on him. Please be okay. Please be okay.
The rest of that staff, they didn't know what they didn't want to know at that point.
Gosh.
Aaron was telling him yes, and so you saw everyone just kind of got out of his way, whether it was coaching-wise, doctor-wise, everyone just sort of said, you do you.
And understand, you can't do an MRI at the field. They take too long. I don't even know if they did an X-ray or not to see if anything was cracked. So basically, it's just a hand test on how loose the knee feels. So no MRI. They didn't feel anything was structurally torn or that bad to where they said you're out. So a lot of times then you do leave it up to the player and say, because we don't have anything definitive that says it is torn or blown out or anything like that. So you leave it more up to the player, and he was going back in.
Again, remember a couple of years ago, Phillip Rivers played in an AFC championship game, well over a decade ago now, with a torn ACL because he figured I can't hurt it any worse and I'm not going to be running around
and
anyway.
It's the playoffs too.
And it's the
playoffs.
This is
game one.
Game one. So as good as it was last night for Aaron Rodgers, literally and figuratively, the real test will come today when they get that MRI on that left knee. Well, the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing it the way they did it last year. It's all about defense and hope that can take them as far as they went last year and beyond. Linebacker Miles Jack scored on a 32-pick six early in the fourth quarter, and the Jaguars spoiled the debut of Pat Shurmur and the Giants head coach and second overall pick Saquon Barkley, who had 106 yards and a touchdown. Odell Beckham Jr. was outstanding, over 11 catches and very, very solid. But guys, what I noticed about this game is nothing has changed offensively, because they really needed one first down to seal that game late, 20-15, and it was a 3rd and 6, and they did a dive play in the middle. They were not about to put the ball in Blake Bortles' hands and say, go win us the game. Look, the defense is going to be, their front seven and is as good as it was last year, maybe better with the Taven Bryant, the kid they got out of Florida. But the thing that I saw late in that game, they could have said, hey, Blake, go win us the game. No, they said hand it off.
They still don't want to put him in that position. And their best running back was out of the game. Leonard Fournette has the hamstring issue. He didn't come back in the game. We're going to have to see where that goes. They do play New England next week. We know all about their defense, so we know that's what's going to lead the team, that in the running game. And then if Blake can give them some things at some point and not hurt the team, they're going to be happy and let the defense lead the team. As far as the Giants, it was the Odell Beckham, Jalen Ramsey matchup. Odell 11 catches, over 100 yards. But Jacksonville still felt like they kept him in check, because Odell is so known for catching the ball and running for a ton of yards after the catch, and you didn't get a lot of that. So his stat looks good, 11 for over 100, but Jacksonville is happy he didn't get any big plays against him. Saquon Barkley looked like what he did in college. Some good, okay, and then boom, there you go.
Hit.
Takes that big one.
Yeah, it was just like his preseason debut when we saw the first run from scrimmage goes for over 30 yards.
Yes.
And we all know, but even going back to college,
you're right, though, Mike.
That was what he was. And it was similar because he didn't get a lot of great blocking in front of him at Penn State. And everyone kind of struggled up front. Now, for the Giants, you hesitate to overreact because it was Jacksonville.
Correct.
The worst possible matchup for what the Giants are already deficient in, which is blocking people in pass protection.
Yeah, and this just in, moving Eric Flowers to right tackle didn't solve any of the problems.
No, it didn't.
That did not solve any of the problems.
The old move to right tackle to protect the guy doesn't work anymore. There's too many good pass rushers. Von Miller's rushing from that side. Khalil Mack was rushing from that side last night. There's too many great pass rushers.
Clowney, J.J. Watt, they move around now. They move around now. So you can't just say, well, put them on right side, it won't be a problem. Look, the Giants' offensive line can be better. It was a very tough test for them. Yep. But the other thing that I took away from that game is there's still work to be done on the offensive line for the Giants. And then there's Cleveland. Oh, dear sweet Cleveland. They did not win a game. But they did not lose. They tied the Steelers. And I thought Hugh Jackson's post-game reaction is like, how do I sell this and not be happy or unhappy? Let's listen to what Hugh said after the tie 21-21 with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
The guys fought, disappointed for our fans, didn't want them to go home without a victory. I didn't want our players to go home without a victory. So we wasn't able to get it done, didn't finish it. But obviously a tie, a tie.
It's like, obviously a tie.
A tie.
A tie. A tie.
What do you say? What do you say?
We didn't lose.
A tie. And listen, I have no problem with a tie.
Yeah.
So many tweets
it's
again
a point in the right direction.
The NFL and overtime and college overtime. I absolutely prefer the NFL. I have no problem with a tie. But also, the story here, you have to go to from ESPN WKNR's Aaron Goldhammer, who said he would eat poop if Cleveland took Baker Mayfield number 1, and they did take him number 1. He finally paid off on the bet on Friday. He ate the poop.
Oh,
and it looked like.
Did you see the video?
Yeah, he retched.
Was awful.
He retched a lot after eating the poop, but he did eat the poop. Took him a little while, and he ate it.
Proud of him. He's a man of his word, but now he's also a poop eater, and we can't forget that.
He is.
Anytime we deal with him,
stick with him the rest of his life, right?
Anytime you hear something coming out of his mouth, just know poop's been in there.
Oh,
yeah. Poop eater.
How long does it take you to get rid of poop breath?
I tell you what, I'm going to take a whole bottle of Listerine.
Yeah.
And a lot of fluoride, and a lot of products.
It's got poop breath?
Literally.
Poop breath?
People, your breath smells like poop. Well, that's because I actually ate poop.
Poop.
So, Goldhammer, good for you, although it was horrible for you, and I could only watch about 10 seconds of it, but you paid it off, and now we'll move on. No, we won't, because I'll always be the poop eater. There's just no way around that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we promised it. Here it comes. Let's go.
The good.
Oh, chef's kiss.
The bad.
Figure it out, Wingo.
And the ugly.
My nickname was Ugly Gangly.
You don't get to pick your own nicknames. All right, it is time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Brought to you by State Farm. Go with the one that's here to help get life right or help life go right. Talk to an agent today at 1-800-STATE-FARM. Let's start positive. Junior, give me the good.
The good, we talk about a lot of debuts this weekend. Patrick Mahomes coming out strong, slinging it for the Kansas City Chiefs. And Andy Reid, stellar game plan, especially early in the season as always, but took advantage of the gifts here. A lot of the run-pass option stuff we're used to and getting the ball in the hands of the playmakers. That offense does not hurt for talent with the addition of Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill we saw early and often, Travis Kelce. This is a team that is so potent, and with the gifts, with the ability for Pat Mahomes to throw it harder and farther than everybody else, he gives those fast speedsters a chance to go get it in places that they're not used to.
Yeah, listen, he may turn out to be great. I'm just going to give it more time. Listen, I'm just going to. There were at least 3 occasions where he rolled out on 2 of them and had a guy right there, 6 yards down the field, that was going to gain a ton of yards. And he didn't even look at him, and he fired it downfield for incompletion each time. Take what they're giving you. Take it. He was a 55% completion, which isn't going to cut it. This is game 1, or game 2 he started. I get it. But for a whole lot of people crowning him, I am just going to say I'm going to give it a little more time. and then you see a little more out of him before I put him in the Hall of Fame like you guys are.
We're not putting him in the Hall of Fame.
You want to see his bust? You want to see his bust in the Hall of Fame before you'll even think about voting?
If anybody could have heard the two of you before the show started, you were as giddy as Louis Riddick was about Mahomes.
Well, by the way, Lewis was right about Jared Goff last year, and I think he's going to be right about Patrick Mahomes this year.
One whole game.
All I'm saying is, I agree with you, because Tony Romo was guilty that early in his career. There were free completions and he didn't take them. Yeah. And he learned his lesson. I think Mahomes is going to get there.
Okay.
But
when he gets there, I'll applaud him. I'm just going to wait.
That throw he made rolling to his right and just flicked it down for about a 30-yard gain was so impressive. And Andy Reid, his head coach, basically saying what you are, Mike. Look, there are things that he still needs to do better.
Thought he did a nice job. He's going to have things that he's got to work on. I mean, like everybody. So, and he knows that this will be a great learning tool for him as he evaluates the tape. But he made plays. He did it with his legs. He did it with throwing. He did it with checks. And, Gus, I have a lot of respect for Gus Bradley and his defense. And he threw a few things at him. He got him a few times. But I thought Pat did a nice job of handling it. I guess an experienced and a very good defense coordinator.
One of the biggest reasons I'm buying in is because Andy Reid believes in the guy, and I'm a big believer in Andy Reid. So I'm going to be looking forward to this, but I'm going to just, like I said, we're going to give it a little more time.
Doesn't sound like you believe in Andy all that much.
I was about to say, I don't get the feeling that you believe in anything right now. All right, so that was the good from Junior. Give me the bad, big boy.
Let me tell you what I don't believe in is the ridiculous landing on the quarterback flags that we're seeing. I get the helmet rule that we're talking about. Who was the kid? Was Sean Williams?
Sean Williams.
Sean Williams from the Bengals ejected. That's what they want to get rid of. That second guy coming in, the hit on Andrew Luck.
Absolutely the right call.
And while I'm not a believer in ejection on a first hit, just like I wasn't in college, so I'm not in the pros either, I understand that call was exactly what they want to get out of the game, and I get it. But the call, there was a few of them, and the one I remember distinctly was Carlos Dunlap from Cincinnati. Yeah. When he hit Andrew Luck and he landed on him, he threw both hands out to not put the full weight on him, to kind of get his hands, and the hands hit the turf while his body hit Andrew Luck. And that happened at least 3 times with other defenders as well. In these bang-bang plays, and especially the angle you're hitting the quarterback at, what they're expecting, and we've gone through this with the secondary, how they're expecting in a split second you to change your level or change how you're turning. They're expecting the same thing out of these D linemen, linebackers, whoever are hitting the quarterbacks. I think it is ridiculous. They want these guys to turn and land on their own shoulder or something. I think they're doing enough by not, if you bear your full weight, I get it. If you wrap the guy up and you drive him in, but if you're throwing a hand out, one hand, two hand, to not put full pressure on the quarterback, I think the ref should be like, all right, he isn't putting his full body weight on the guy. I'm not going to flag that. I think it is ridiculous, and it's costing teams. It's costing teams that are trying to get off the field, 3rd and whatever. Now it's 1st down and the drive keeps going. So while I understand the helmet rule, what's going on with this landing on the quarterback when these guys are clearly putting their hands out to not put their full weight on him? I think it's ridiculous.
The most interesting part of that game is the way it turned out. Sean Williams is ejected, so they had to play their backup safety, Clayton Fedulum, and he comes up with the scoop and score to win the game after the big hit on Jack Doyle when it looked like the Colts were going to drive down and get the game winner. Instead, Fedulum, who's really basically on the field because Sean Williams got ejected, goes back the other way and seals the win for the Cincinnati Bengals. And now it's time for the ugly. And boy, this was ugly. The Dallas Cowboys offense, the Dallas Cowboys clock management, and the Dallas Cowboys personnel decisions all came home to roost Sunday in Carolina, and in a horrible way. The offense never got going. Part of that, again, because of the problems with Travis Frederick out there. La'el Collins is not playing. So the Cowboys' offensive line, as we know it as this massive institution of greatness, it's not there. And this group is not that group that's been there the last couple of years. But I got to tell you, time management and clock management and game management matters. It was a one-possession game, guys, 16-8 in the fourth quarter. Right. The Cowboys are on the Carolina 48-yard line on a 4th and 10 with 2:18 to play. Why is that important? Well, you have the 2-minute warning, and you have all 3 timeouts. All 3 timeouts. So you have 4 chances to stop the clock. Do you go for it on 4th and 10, or do you take one of the best punters in the NFL that they have, pin Carolina deep, then use your timeouts, get excellent field position, and get a chance to maybe get a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. That's what you do. No! Instead, they went for it on 4th and 10, thus giving Carolina unbelievable field position. So when they finally got the ball back, the Cowboys were well inside their own 20-yard line. They completely botched the game management.
I didn't hear what Jason Garrett said after the game about that either. I'd like to know what he goes. I'm sure somebody had to bring that up to him as well, because I would have thought the same thing. Pin him, use the 2-minute, use your timeout.
You have all 4 timeouts.
Because, again, if this was a 48-40 game, I'd have thought differently. I'd have went for it.
Yeah.
But neither team was lighting up the scoreboard here, so your defense can come up with, yes, you want them to come up with that stop.
Yeah, and the defense actually, DeMarcus Lawrence, they got a pretty quality performance out of him. You saw Jalen Smith and Sean Lee. Sean Lee, a couple of missed tackles in spots that we're not used to.
He did, I agree.
Starting to turn, that's not a defense necessarily known for turning guys loose and heating up the quarterback, but using Jalen Smith well in that regard and getting a better performance there from that offense that just looked dull and unimaginative. In a day and age where we talk about all these great coordinators, Dallas is getting none of that out of their offense.
None of that. And let's be clear, by also going for it on 4th and 10, you're basically saying to your defense, we don't believe you can stop these guys, when they've been doing it all game.
Yeah.
4th and 10 from the Carolina 48, and you have 4 stoppages, you punt. You punt and you pin them deep. It's just that simple. Oh, and maybe you don't cut the second most accurate field goal kicker in NFL history because the guy they brought in, Brett Mayer, missed his first kick of 47 yards.
Cowboy colors are showing.
I'm just saying, it's pretty clear that they botched the way that game was managed from start to finish.
Hey, at least Dak Prescott completed 65% of his passes, so he had a good game.
Yeah, okay. Coming up, when will Le'Veon Bell be back, and did James Conner's performance change that as to what the Steelers are thinking? When will the Bills turn to Josh Allen? We'll get DJ Shefty Chef, Adam Schefter, in here to answer all of these questions.
It's time. Time to join the millions of people that meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Zoom gives you flawless video, crystal clear audio, and instant sharing across any mobile, tablet, or desktop device. But the best thing about Zoom? It just works. So ditch the distractions, join the movement, and meet happy with Zoom video conferencing. Visit Zoom.us to set up your free account today. That's Zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing. Technology powers your business, and technology changes. But chances are you're still using video conferencing that was wow 10 years ago, but feels more like whoa today. Ditch the choppy video and crappy audio and get back to wow with Zoom. It's the easiest, most reliable video collaboration suite, and it costs about a third of what you're probably paying now. Wow, not whoa. Visit Zoom.us to set up a free account today. That's Zoom.us. Zoom video conferencing.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. And when you need to hire fast, accelerate your results with sponsored jobs. New users can try for free at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms, conditions, and quality standards apply.
All right, Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Glad you're with us. Presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike Golic Jr., Trey Wingo here with you. And we are delighted, as we will every Monday of the NFL's regular season and postseason, to be joined by Adam Schefter. You know him as ESPN NFL Insider, host of the Adam Schefter podcast, writer of a book, and also the NBA sideline reporter. Let's face it, there's precious little that Adam Schefter doesn't do.
There's a lot that I don't do.
Adam, let's start with the game last night, because it was a great performance and a gutty response by Aaron Rodgers, and all Packers fans are giddy right now. But let's be honest, until they go through all the tests today, a lot of people are still holding their breath in Green Bay.
They are, and they will, and that's understandable. But the fact of the matter is, again, he did come back to play.
Yep.
He did say to Michelle Tafoya after the game, I'll be out there next week. And I know the test could show something, but if it was that damaging, would the Packers doctors who are typically very conservative, allowed him to go back out there to play if there was something that was significantly wrong? I would think not, but we'll find out.
You would not. And again, they can only do the hand test with it because they can't do the MRI back there. And I don't know if they did an X-ray or not, but that's just obviously for bone. That's not going to tell you anything with a ligament or not. So all they can do is kind of go with how loose. That's what they do whenever you see with their hands, they're seeing how loose the joint may be. That gives them an idea of the possibility of the injury. You wouldn't think, You pretty much can know the movement of it, these doctors, if something is really, really bad, but that doesn't mean all the time that there maybe isn't some sort of maybe second degree possibly there or not. We'll find out today.
Yep, we will find out, and it's certainly, I think, at the front of the line for news in the NFL just because it is Aaron Rodgers. He's the guy that signed that massive contract not too long ago. He's the face of a league that's so driven by quarterback play. But on the other side, Khalil Mack coming out with a marquee performance to start his Bear career, and with him and Roquan Smith just continuing to assess this situation. I know it's early, but this has to be something that Raiders fans and maybe even some in that organization look at and go, well, yeah, we could have told you this was coming.
Well, look, there were 4 players on the Bears last night. We'll get to Khalil Mack in a moment, who were not at full strength, who did not take part in the preseason, who basically were limited in some way or another. We had Khalil Mack, who was coming off the trade. We had Aaron Lynch coming off the hamstring. Roquan Smith, hamstring, first-round pick. There was a 4th round, Aaron Lynch, Roquan Smith, Leonard Floyd.
Right.
So the Bears' defense is going to get better. But Khalil Mack, game wrecker.
Oh, my gosh.
Game wrecker.
Listen.
That is hard to do, all the things that he did. In the age that he is, 27, the fact of the matter is the Raiders, they just didn't see the value in paying him, which is hard to imagine, but they just didn't. They wanted to move on from him.
Well, that's the thing that I find most interesting about this. I mean, they had one conversation in February, right, between John Gruden and Khalil Mack. So you get the feeling this was kind of where this was going to end up all along. And I would only ask, what makes the Raiders better without arguably the best defensive player in football? That's the thing I can't get around.
Well, it's hard to imagine that, right?
Yeah.
Here's the issue, I think. I'm going to be curious to see how the Raiders respond to this. It wasn't as if Khalil Mack was this unpopular guy within the locker room. We saw the reaction on the morning that the trade was agreed to with the Chicago Bears. The players were not real happy. And when you don't pay or keep a guy who's that good and that popular and that respected and that hardworking, I think that's a shot at the morale of the team. And to see how they respond tonight and the season will be interesting, and they're going to have to capitalize on those draft picks. And they also sent the 2nd-round draft pick.
And a 2nd-round pick as well.
So it's Khalil Mack and a 2nd to Chicago.
Unbelievable.
For Khalil Mack. Now, they got back 2 1s and a couple of other picks. But I'll also say this. This was somebody that the Bears were targeting all summer long, waiting for the Raiders to get to a spot where they were going to be open to dealing him.
And they got it. All right, Adam Schefter with us. Listen, what's the situation now with Le'Veon Bell? Because, yes, James Conner had a critical fumble late that allowed the Browns to come back and tie in the most Browns thing ever. They ended their losing streak by not winning. But the offense and the running game looked pretty good. And I thought one of the most interesting reaction guys all Sunday was when Conner scored his first touchdown. The entire offensive line was there with him saying, hey, this is our guy. So how does this change the dynamic, if at all, of what's going on?
It does not. It is what it is. It's an awkward, uncomfortable, difficult situation that they're going to have to navigate through once he does come back. And I think he does come back at some point in time. Probably sooner rather than later would be my guess, reading between all the lines. But, again, they're not going to trade him. They're not considering that. They have no interest in doing that. They're not going to rescind the franchise tag on him. Not interested in doing that either.
Wait, you just said they're not going to trade him. That's a double negative, so it sounds like they're going to trade him.
Okay, well, whatever it is, Trey, you cleaned up the language.
They're not trading him.
They're not trading him.
Okay.
Not trading
so they're
him.
not trading him.
They're not trading him. Absolutely not.
There you go.
It was an emphatic not redundant.
I just wanted to make sure. I was a little confused.
Not trading.
Not trading him.
Emphatically using not twice.
I got you. Okay.
They're not trading him, Trey. Yeah, we'll make that nice and simple. They're not trading him.
Do you think, and obviously we don't know what he feels, he or agent, but feels that if James Conner is playing well, maybe he needs to get back in, or he just, I don't think
James Conner, I think James Conner could have been Walter Payton yesterday, and he had a great game. It doesn't affect Le'Veon Bell's thinking. I think when you speak to people around the league, there's a sense they believe that he'll be back by the end of the month at some point, whenever that is, and we'll see what he decides to do. So, again, that would be my read on it as well.
So, we're going to have the one, I'm sorry, Mike, we're going to have the one starting rookie quarterback tonight in Sam Darnold, but already let's start looking at other rookies, and maybe are they going to be on the field sooner than we think. The Nathan Peterman, 5 of 18 in Buffalo, looked horrific. Josh Allen got into that game. Tyrod Taylor, while it was a tie, he was 15 of 40 in that game. And Sam Bradford completed just 58% of his passes, no touchdowns, 1 interception, as the Cardinals looked awful in their game. So there's the 3 spots there where you have rookies. Do we think Josh Allen is the next one in line, and how maybe close these other 2 guys between Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen may get in?
Well, the Bills will make their quarterback decision this week. You know, it's easy to watch Nathan Peterman yesterday and say, boy, they have to go to Josh Allen. But all we have to do is go back to the Bills' 3rd preseason game when Josh Allen got extensive playing time.
Right. Didn't go well.
He did not look good. He didn't look any better than Nathan Peterman that particular day. So I think that they were trying to save Josh Allen and not rush him along. But when you're out there and you're watching Nathan Peterman, it was hard. I mean, he struggled last year in his start. And there's this perception, right or wrong, that he's not going to be able to get it done. That's a tough spot right now that the Bills look like they're in. Now, again, it's a week-to-week league, but Nathan Peterman did not offer them a lot of hope. I think they were hoping, expecting more. Tough defense.
Yeah.
In playing in Baltimore against the Ravens. Tough, but that was discouraging.
Well, the other thing that was interesting is, listen, people have not talked about Washington a lot. I think Washington's going to be a lot better than a lot of people have been thinking about. Alex Smith played very, very well, and that defense looked great as well.
Support for the Golic and Wingo Show podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Let's talk about buying homes for a minute. Because of rising interest rates, there's a lot of unpredictability when it comes to buying a home these days. It's causing a whole lot of anxiety with folks. Well, our friends at Quicken Loans are doing something about it. They're calling it the power buying process, and here's how it works. Quicken Loans will verify your income, assets, and credit in less than 24 hours to give you a verified approval. This gives you the strength of a cash buyer. Then once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. First, they lock your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. Now here's the best part. If rates go up, your rate stays the same. But if rates go down, your rate also drops. You win either way. It's the kind of thinking you'd expect from America's largest mortgage lender. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Golic. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data record. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS ConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
All right, glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We're delighted to have Adam Schefter still with us from the Adam Schefter Podcast, ESPN NFL Insider, author, NBA beat reporter, the whole thing. Adam does it all. Adam, one of the weirdest and worst games, actually, in terms of one team's display and potential was what happened in Carolina last Sunday with the Dallas Cowboys. Shut out for most of that game. They lose 16-8. Dak never got really anything going through the air. Zeke got going a little bit late, 69 yards, had 1 touchdown. But it was an ugly, ugly performance. And there were some huge time management, game management issues late in that game where they had a 4th and 10 on the Carolina 48 down by 1 possession, and they go for it on a 4th and 10 when they had the TV time, the 2-minute warning timeout plus all 3 timeouts. They decided not to pin them deep, and that backfired massively. So I have to ask you, not a lot of people talked after that game. Jerry Jones, who is usually very loquacious, hardly said anything. Scott Linehan, the offensive coordinator, didn't say much. How hot right now is the seat for head coach Jason Garrett?
Listen, I think there's pressure on these coaches always, but I think in that particular situation in Dallas, I think that there was definitely an expectation and pressure to win this season.
Yeah.
They have not fared well in recent years. They had the 1 year where they went to the postseason where they were done in by the bad man himself.
Aaron Rodgers.
Down the stretch with Jared Cook. But when you spoke to people this summer, it seemed to be that there was a lack of energy in the Cowboys camp at certain
A lack of energy?
At certain times.
Wow.
At certain times. There were people that said that. Yeah. I wasn't there. I want to be very clear.
But that's what people are telling you.
Talking to people, yeah. There were a couple people, hey, I was there or I saw this. So we'll see whether or not that manifests itself. Des Bryant certainly enjoyed it.
Oh,
tweeting all about it.
Now, is he hurt? All right, we'll get to the Des Bryant thing in a minute, but seriously, how much pressure is Jason Garrett on right now? How much jeopardy is he in right now of losing his job?
That's a tough question to answer, Trey.
Yeah.
These coaches always have to win or face the consequences, and I would never want to pin it on one guy like that and say, boy, he's got to win this Sunday or they're going to make a move. I just think that there's the expectation in Dallas from Jerry Jones that they do well, and if they don't, then we see the consequences. And I think there would be consequences if they don't win this year and go to the postseason and have the kind of year that they expect.
Yeah, so then let's get to Des Bryant and all of that, because his live commentary on Sundays and in the middle of game action has been a staple through the preseason and into now. And now that we get after week 1 in the NFL, so those vet contracts no longer fully guaranteed, is this a guy who's going to get even more attention than he already has?
The Browns have been interested in him, and Mort talked about it yesterday on Sunday Countdown. They have an interest still, and I think he's got some interest. And once you get past week 1, sometimes you see a handful of veterans catch on because the contracts, as you mentioned, no longer guaranteed. So I think he'll be in play in Cleveland. I think that they have an interest. The other one that would be interesting, and again, I don't think there's been any conversation, but would Seattle have any interest now that Doug Baldwin's got an MCL injury, and they might need another wide receiver? We'll see what happens there, whether another team decides to call Des Bryant going forward. But Cleveland remains interested.
We talk about in the break here behind the scenes how you guys, a lot of guys here, watch the games in the war room with all the TVs in the game. So what was the consensus in the room of the helmet penalties, the roughing the passer penalty, Sean Williams getting ejected from the Cincinnati Bengals?
Sean Williams got ejected for unnecessary roughness, and I don't believe there was a single lowering the helmet penalty called yesterday at all, not one. So. Again, I think that it goes back to what we talked about this summer, where they were going to implement it in the preseason games, send the message, send a warning, and then lax those rules, lighten up on those rules once we get to the regular season. I think that bore itself out yesterday because we didn't see a lot of that call. We didn't see any of that called. And again, the refs have it in their pocket, and they always could do that, but you didn't see a lot of it.
There were 14 roughing the passer calls, 19 unnecessary roughness penalties. So maybe they were doing that in lieu of the helmet penalty.
Look, I think the
shaping the message.
Yeah,
the roughing the passer, that's always been there, but as Al Riveron himself has said, they're emphasizing that this year. And so when they emphasize a rule, they're really going to be on the lookout for it. And they want to protect those quarterbacks. They don't want Anthony Barr plowing into Aaron Rodgers the way he did last year, driving him into the turf. The Sean Williams play yesterday with Andrew Luck was a perfect example.
Well, that was different. That's different.
He's going down and bam, you pound him on the ground.
That second man in is different than way to the quarterback. And there were more than a few, as I said, where guys were putting their hands out and still getting flagged. Yeah. That's ridiculous. Yep. That's a ridiculous call.
All right, Adam Schefter in with us this morning. One of the most interesting stories that people weren't talking about a lot but bore fruit on Sunday, the story of running back Philip Lindsay, the rookie, undrafted rookie for the Denver Broncos. Look, everyone's all in on the Royce Freeman Express. He's the starter, and he played pretty well. But Lindsay was the difference maker a lot of times in that offense for the Denver Broncos. For those that don't know his story, he's a kid that played his high school ball in Denver, went to Colorado, set all kinds of records at Colorado, was undrafted, and boy, he was the one that asked TD, can I wear number 30 as a running back for the Broncos? And TD said go for it, and the kid showed out yesterday.
He was a stud yesterday. Just watching him, he was one of the big difference makers in that game, and you're right, Trey. Everybody was expecting Royce Freeman, the 4th-round pick, to burst onto the scene and be the force in Denver's rushing attack. And TD is Terrell Davis, the Hall of Fame running back that played there in Denver. And Philip Lindsay did call him for permission to wear his number, which is very generous and kind and thoughtful. And TD signed off on it. And I don't think anybody thought that was going to carry over from the preseason. This guy went from being a great preseason story to all of a sudden becoming a headliner on the opening day of the season for the team that he grew up rooting for. Great story out in Colorado.
And quickly from the young to the older, Adrian Peterson in Washington. Again, early, we saw some flashes last year and then now, but boy, he looked good.
And let me say this, the Redskins have enough other weapons, like Jordan Reed and Chris Thompson.
Absolutely.
That they could throw the ball around, and they just need Adrian Peterson to do what he did. Can do.
Yes, yeah.
And be physical and a force, and he was.
Adam, we don't have much time left, but if Ryan Fitzpatrick keeps doing this for the next 2 games, is Jameis Winston assured of starting his job?
Well, if he's going to throw, 5 touchdowns and run for 1?
4 touchdowns of passing, 1 running,
Yeah, and if he does that, then he keeps the
417.
But I still think it's Jameis' job when he comes back. He's just looked too good this summer. He's their leader. Fitzmagic can show up at any point, but as Fitzpatrick himself has pointed out, he's thrown 6 touchdowns in a game and 6 interceptions in a game. We'll see which one. But I'm going to venture to say, 4 touchdown passes, 1 running. He keeps the job if he does it every week.
Part of magic is a disappearing act, and that sometimes happens to Ryan Fitzpatrick. We'll see what happens. Adam, thanks for being with us this morning, man.
When it comes to hiring, you don't have time to waste. You need help getting to your short list of qualified candidates fast. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions, then zero in on qualified